Hey, so sorry about the audio for this episode. Storman decided to get two microphone stands new, and he ended up getting the wrong ones. Um, this will be rectified hopefully soon, but for now, the audio is going to be, let's say, unusually bad and that's not a word. Let's just get to the video. Oh,
Don't start. Welcome to Storm and Chocolate. I'm Storm and Norman. This week is song number 18, Dirty Work by Steely Dan from their debut album, Can't Buy a Thrill. So as I mentioned a second ago, Can't Buy a Thrill was Steely Dan's debut album, came out in 1972, and included big hits for them, being on their debut album, Do It Again and Reeling in the Years. I think this song, Dirty Work, is actually the third best song on the album, although I like it better than any other song on the album. But it was never released as either an A-side single or a B-side. So it plays to the strength of the song that it became as popular as it did, only being an album cut. The album received a mixed critical reception on its launch, but it had very interesting lyrics and a funky jazziness that set it apart from other acts at the time. Interestingly, over time, Steely Dan became a critic's darling, so there was a progression not only in their music as it became more polished into the later albums, but also the critics perhaps changed the dynamics of their hearing and found more to like in their music. They never became superstars. They never were super successful in selling their albums. However, all of their early albums became platinum sellers in the United States, except their second album. And Asia, which was their next to last album before they took a sabbatical, went double platinum. The first album that they released after they came back together and started recording again, 2000's Two Against Nature, is also double platinum.
they made an album in 2000?
Sorry?
They made an album in 2000?
They made Two Against Nature in 2000, and they made another album after that, which didn't get certified at all.
Holy shit. The same bad numbers?
Well, if you listen to the history of the group, which I'm about to get to, Donald Fagen met Walter Becker at Bard College in Annandale-on-Hudson, which is a hamlet of Red Hook, which is a town that is not really upstate New York, but kind of upstate. It's about 45 miles south of Albany, which is New York State's capital, and about 135 miles due north of Manhattan Island, which is the center of New York City. And you measure from the bottom of Manhattan Island and you get that nice round number of 135 miles. So the fact that the college is located in Annandale-on-Hudson, which means it's on the Hudson River, it kind of explains why the song My Old School mentions Annandale in every verse, because they're talking about their old school. Donald Fagen met Walter Becker when he was walking down the street one day and heard somebody tuning their guitar inside a coffee shop, and he went in and he liked what he heard and he struck up a conversation like you do. And they talked about music and stuff and college, and they said, maybe we should start a band together. And as a matter of fact, one of the bands that they started together and played with for a while had Chevy Chase, the actor and comedian of Saturday Night Live.
More cowbell.
No, that was after his time. He was only there for 1 year. He was so successful, he went off and did other things. He went off and did movies. As a matter of fact, one of the bands that they played in had Chevy Chase, the actor and comedian from Saturday Night Live fame, play drums in one of their bands. Small world. So after Donald Fagen graduated in 1969, the two of them moved down to Brooklyn, New York in order to further their musical careers. They ended up having very little success while they were working alone in Brooklyn. They were kind of seen as beatniks before the move and after the move, so it was kind of difficult working with other people. But they did have a great fascination with the beat generation of poets and musicians before them, and this actually ended up affecting the name of their band. That said, they made several very important contacts while they were in Brooklyn. First, they met Kenny Vance, who was working in the world-famous Brill Building, which is where songwriters go to work for the structure in the music business. It's full of different offices and different people have production offices in there. And Kenny Vance had a production office. Kenny is a singer and a founding member of the group Jay and the Americans, who had a couple of hits. They had a hit called Come a Little Closer, which hit number 3 in 1964, and they had a remake of the Drifters song This Magic Moment, which hit number 6 in 1969. This is important because Walter Becker and Donald Fagen actually toured as musicians with the group Jay and the Americans when they went on tour for about a year and a half. And I'm told through Wikipedia and other sources that they were initially paid $100 a week, and then the band cut their wages down in half to $50 a week, which starving musicians can't really live on. The second important contact that they made was they met Jeff Skunk Baxter, who is a world-famous guitarist. And he ended up playing not only with Steely Dan, but also with the Doobie Brothers. So you can see him on the cover of Minute by Minute and other albums on the front and back where the pictures of the group are. Skunk was working as a session musician in New York City, which is how he met the two of them. And all three of them, among other musicians, worked on an album for Linda Hoover, a singer, but the album ended up getting shelved and never was released until 2022. However, they struck up a good friendship at that time. The third contact that they made was they met Gary Katz, who was the producer on Linda's album. And he was an associate of Kenny Vance's, so there's a small world going on. They probably, had cream cheese and bagels in Kenny's office in the Brill Building, and, one thing led to another. And what happened was Gary got an offer to become a staff producer at ABC Records out in LA, so he moved cross country. And once he was out there, he started rearranging his staff, and he asked Becker and Fagen to come out and become staff songwriters for him. The problem is, and you might have seen this coming, is that the songs that they were writing for other artists at ABC were so complicated, it was kind of outside of their wheelhouses. And Gary said, we can't have other people make your songs. I think you need to start a band. And so that's what they did. Now, I mentioned before that the name Steely Dan actually came out of the Beat Generation. Specifically, it was mentioned as an item inside William S. Burroughs' novel, The Naked Lunch, or just Naked Lunch. So when they started the band, they roped in Skunk Baxter.
Oh my God.
So when they started the band, they asked Skunk to join, since they knew how well he could play. They added a second guitarist named Denny Diaz. They added a drummer named Jim Hodder, and they also got a singer named David Palmer. There was a twofold reason why they got David Palmer. First is that Donald Fagen was suffering terribly from stage fright, and so he couldn't get up and perform in front of people, so they had to have somebody come up and sing for him. And they also felt that David Palmer's voice was more commercial than Donald Fagen's was. Donald has a real distinctive voice, and over time we've grown to love it. But at that time, the record company was kind of, I don't know. Let's get somebody else to sing it. We'll see how it goes. So what ended up happening is David Palmer sang Dirty Work. That's probably his most famous song in the band. He also sang lead on another song, and he co-led singing on 3 other songs. So fully half of the album has him singing lead or co-lead. There's only 10 songs on the album. Now, all of the songs are credited to Fagen and Becker as songwriters. So David sang most of the lead on the first tour when they went around the country promoting the first album. But eventually, both Katz and Becker had the conversation that they felt that Donald's interpretations of the songs were better than David's. So finally, Donald Fagen started singing lead while they were on tour, and David Palmer kind of faded into the background. As a matter of fact, when they came around to starting their second album and recording it, David left the band and he went off into not necessarily the great unknown. As a matter of fact, 2 years later, he wrote the lyrics to the Carole King hit, Jazzman. So that's the connection that we have between this song and another song. We're going to cover Jazzman. I think it's in this group of 20. If not, it's going to be in the next group of 20. So it's coming up soon, and you'll see how good David is as a lyricist. The lyrics of the verses fall into an A-B-A-B-B structure where the B choruses are all the same. The verses describe the lamentations of a backdoor man as he's being hired by a woman when her man is out of town and she's trying to do it on the cheap. So the first two lines give you an idea of how it goes.
Times are hard, you're afraid to pay the fee, so you find yourself somebody who can do the job for free.
And then the next two lines describe what he's being hired for and that he's kind of okay with the arrangement as is. However, when we get to the chorus, we actually get kind of a pushback from him that he's kind of tired about the situation. Maybe he wants her to leave her man and they can hook up and go off and live happily ever after, or he would prefer that she top.
She wants to top him?
She wants to be a top. Or he would prefer that she stop calling him specifically. And this is what he sings during the chorus.
I'm a fool to do your dirty work, oh yeah. I don't want to do your dirty work no more.
The second verse is a little bit more fun. We get some indications of what the environment is. Light a candle so there's soft lighting. Make sure you lock the door so nobody can come in and interrupt us. I certainly don't want to be found in flagrante. Send the help home early like you've done every other time that we've done this. And then, everything is good to go, so to speak. And then we get to my favorite part of the song where there's a chess metaphor that sounds like this.
Like the castle in its corner in a medieval game, I foresee terrible trouble and I stay here just the same.
Now, it's not a great metaphor. Usually the rook in the chess game is one of the more active pieces on the board. It maybe is not traditionally as active as the bishops are. They're just racing around between pieces, but rooks, they get around. However, on the other hand, they're usually close to the king and guarding the king as opposed to guarding the queen, right? So here we have the queen who's calling him to come over, and he's like a castle foreseeing terrible trouble. Anyway, I don't care that it doesn't make sense, but I love the lines anyway, and they really kind of work in this scene. Now, on the other hand, the music has some strange organizations. It's not like 20 sections of 4 bars. They have like 3-bar sections or 6-bar sections or something like this. And you're not really sure. If you have an internal metronome going off, you're not really sure where they're going to come in, where they're going to transition, how things are going to change. And the sax solo that I mentioned before between the last 2 choruses, it seems like it's not a perfect length. I think this is kind of the jazziness that I don't necessarily like about Steely Dan, something that turned me off. But I love the song. I love the way it is, and I've kind of gotten used to it. But it is kind of weird, but it's weird and wonderful. It's also quite possible that that sax solo changes time, kind of the way Money does. where you go from a 4/7 time to a 4/4 time. So David could actually play his lead guitar solo like he normally would. It has normal time. And then as soon as the solo is done, it goes back to that 4/7 time. So I don't think I've ever heard Donald Fagen sing this song. I've only heard David Palmer's rendition. I have seen some recordings of Steely Dan in concert, like on the Midnight Special with Wolfman Jack, and I don't recall him singing it. I know they've done My Old School, which I talked about before, and it's really fun to watch, and it's really jazzy, and everybody has really long hair. But I should have gone back and researched and to see whether I like it or not. But anyway, I don't have a video for this like I did for When the Lady Smiles or Slave to Love. So it's just an album cut, and it's an old album from 1972. So that's it for Dirty Work from Steely Dan from their debut album, Can't Buy a Thrill. Join us next time when we scale the pinnacles of Edgar Froese on his solo album of the same name. We'll see you then. Bye-bye.
Drunken Mozart in the desert.
So here, you're going to need this.